You stand among bones that have begun to pale, though the ground beneath them is still warm, as if it remembers every scream. Thermopylae is over. The shouting has vanished. The shields no longer clash. What remains is silence so thick it presses against your chest, heavier than armor, heavier than fear. You breathe it in, and it tastes of iron and rot. The heroes are gone. The story says they died cleanly. The earth disagrees. You look down and realize the bodies are not resting. They are warning. Limbs twisted where discipline finally failed. Faces frozen not in glory but confusion. No song survives long enough to cover this. You were told death here was an ending, yet nothing feels finished. Blood seeps into soil, into memory, into you. Heroism does not evaporate pain. It preserves it, like meat salted for a longer hunger. You ask yourself what honor costs when no one is left to collect it. The dead do not feel pride. They do not hear praise. Their silence is not peace. It is abandonment. Shame lingers where voices once roared. The Spartan code promised meaning, but meaning cannot warm a corpse. It cannot close a wound that history keeps open with careful fingers. Even the wind hesitates here, moving softly, as if afraid to disturb what has been paid for. You sense eyes without bodies watching, not gods, not enemies, but expectations. The future stands just beyond sight, sharpening its teeth on memory. This is where suffering ferments, where grief curdles into obligation. You feel it already crawling up your spine. The unspoken command. Look, remember, repay. Civilization will call this sacrifice. Philosophers will polish it into virtue. But standing here, you sense the truth they bury. Power feeds on bodies and calls the feeding holy. The battle ended, yet violence remains, unfinished and impatient. The silence is not empty. It is listening, waiting to see who will inherit the debt. As you turn away from the bones, mourning hardens. Something colder replaces tears. Memory sharpens into resolve, and resolve begins to ache for blood again. You carry the silence with you as you leave the bones behind, and it follows like a shadow that learned your name. Grief is not allowed to weep here. It is lifted, honed, and handed back to you as a blade. Sparta does not mourn, it prepares. Tears are called weakness, so sorrow learns to speak in orders, in drills, in the measured cruelty of routine. Ritual begins the work. Names of the dead are recited at dawn, not as prayers but as commands. Law tightens around the wound, telling you where to stand, how to eat, when to sleep, what to hate. Indoctrination smooths the edges, teaching the body to obey before the mind can ask why. You feel it happen inside you, the ache turning rigid, the memory sharpening. The Persians stop being men. Their faces blur into a single mask, a symbol large enough to hold humiliation. This is how vengeance becomes efficient. You are told that rage must be clean, that killing can be pure if it wears the right language. Power performs itself, and you applaud because silence would mean doubt, and doubt would mean betrayal. Children train among ghosts. They run past markers where bodies once lay, learning balance where blood pooled. They speak the fallen names like passwords, like keys to locked rooms inside their chests. Survival is praised, but only if it serves the story. Even those who lived are trapped, sentenced to remember correctly. Loneliness deepens. You are surrounded, yet isolated by expectation. To hesitate is to shame the dead. To question is to reopen the wound. Trauma is metabolized into permission, stamped and sanctioned, turned outward. What began as loss becomes policy. The number grows. 300 becomes 10,000. The scale expands. The voice grows louder, and the promise hardens. This will end the pain. But you can feel the lie forming. Revenge is not redemptive. It multiplies. As the drums begin to summon bodies not yet broken, you sense the future bending, eager to prove that grief, once weaponized, never knows when to stop. It will not be clean. It will not be heroic. The march will stain everything, even the hands that claim justice. You step forward anyway, carrying fury, knowing the path ahead feeds on obedience, and that the silence you learned to wield is already shaping the next grave, the next song, the next generation. Plataea opens its mouth to you slowly, not with a roar, but with the sound of breath breaking under helmets. Dust hangs thick, turning the sun into a dull wound in the sky. Shields collide, not like music, but like doors slamming shut on mercy. You move because everyone moves. You strike because stopping would mean thinking, and thinking would mean remembering why you are here. The enemy is no longer a face. It is a shape that falls when hit. Bodies disappear under boots, pressed into the earth until they lose their names. You feel the weight of vengeance guiding your arm, heavy and certain. This is not defense. This is release. Years of silence spill out through muscle and steel. Discipline was supposed to make you clean. Pain makes you hungry instead. You hear screams and cannot tell whose they are. The line blurs. Prisoners beg with languages you do not understand, and so you decide they mean nothing. Memory stands behind you, whispering that mercy would insult the dead. You obey. The battle stretches, then tightens. Blood slicks the ground, turning formation into instinct. You are taught control, but rage feels like clarity. You feel powerful, and that frightens you less than it should. Philosophers will later call this justice. Standing here, you feel only exhaustion dressed as purpose. The Spartans do not stop when the threat ends. Pain has been waiting too long. Execution follows victory like an aftertaste. The word enemy expands to fit everyone still breathing. This is how restraint starves. This is how ideals rot under pressure and still claim to be sacred. The air smells of copper, sweat, fear, and something older, like buried regret. You look down at your hands and they do not feel like yours. They are tools shaped by memory, sharpened by grief. The dead from Thermopylae seem closer now, but not comforted. Their presence is heavy, accusing, unsatisfied. You wonder briefly if this is what they wanted. The thought passes quickly. There is work to finish. When it ends, it does not feel like triumph. The field is quiet again, but it is a different silence, bloated and sick. Victory stands before you, empty-eyed. You search for relief and find none. Revenge promised closure. It delivered repetition. As banners rise and voices shout a name for this moment, something inside you stays hollow. Justice should have felt like balance. Instead, it feels like an echo, repeating pain without answer. You sense the story already being written, cleaner than the ground beneath you. And as you walk away from Plataea, you carry the unsettling truth forward. Violence remembered does not heal. It only learns new places to live. You walk the field after the shouting dies, and victory tastes like ash. The air is still thick with smoke and breath, armor discarded where bodies cooled too fast to notice they were finished. You step around limbs arranged by chance, not ceremony, and realize no ritual can make this clean. Persia is broken, they say, as if fracture were healing, as if destruction could reverse time. You wait for something to return. It does not. The dead remain dead. The 300 do not rise from the dust to thank you. Looted armor lies in heaps, still warm, still smelling of sweat and panic. Trophies that feel heavier than shields ever did in battle. You touch nothing. You already have too much on your hands. This is the quiet after excess, where the body slows but the mind keeps running, searching for meaning that has fled. Revenge promised balance. It delivered emptiness. You feel it now, the hollowness spreading, the suspicion that annihilation creates nothing except more absence. The songs being prepared will polish this into glory, but you know how it sounded up close, wet, uneven, human. Vengeance did not restore honor. It consumed it, leaving a hunger that cannot be fed without destroying what remains. You sense the shape of a question forming, heavier than any spear. What kind of people survives victories like this? The answer does not come. Only the future waits, watching, ready to inherit the damage. You understand now that the greatest cost was not paid by the enemy, but by the meaning you thought you were defending. Civilizations survive by telling themselves this feeling will pass, that hollowness is temporary, that force can still be sacred. You are not so sure. Standing among the graves being filled, you feel the story closing around you, tighter, darker, demanding silence. Victory has ended the war, but it has opened something else, something that will ask to be fed again. You sense that this hollow triumph is not an ending, but a blueprint, a lesson others will study and repeat. As night settles, you realize the most dangerous thing left standing is not an enemy, but a civilization learning to live without mercy. This victory tastes like ash because it has burned something invisible, something you will never be able to bury. You turn away, knowing the silence ahead will be louder, and that the question of what comes after victory has only begun. The road forward is intact, but the soul beneath it is fractured, waiting to see what kind of world dares to walk it. You step into that future carrying emptiness, wondering whether anything built on this can endure at all now. The bones you walked among are still speaking, though no one listens. Their whitened edges press against memory, sharp and unyielding. Plataea was not an ending. It was a lesson in disguise, a blueprint folded into dust and marrow, waiting for you to unfold it. You hear their silence now as accusation, as warning. Every scar on your hands, every shadow in your chest, every grudging thought you carry, these are the echoes of battles you did not fight, of cruelty inherited as tradition. Look closer. The blood dried on the earth is not past. It hums beneath your feet, ready to rise in new shapes, in new names, in new faces. The anger you nurture, the grudges you cradle, the revenge you imagine as justified, they are not yours alone. They are part of a pattern older than memory, older than civilization. You feel it when you close your eyes. How easily grief becomes hunger, how easily sorrow becomes a weapon. The bones do not forgive, they do not console. They only remind. Every life ended, every wound left to fester, every moment when mercy was refused, these do not vanish. They circulate, they teach, they demand recognition. You realize that the cruelty you witnessed is mirrored in the silence you choose, in the small acts of disregard, in the grudges you pass on as heritage. And now you see it clearly. History is a trap that repeats for the ones who think themselves righteous. There is no closure in violence, no redemption in vengeance, only accumulation of pain, of debt, of expectation. The dead wait not for your apology, but for your understanding, for the knowledge that your hands carry the same hunger, that your mind can trace the same path. It is your choice whether to continue it. You can step carefully or blindly, but the pattern does not forgive hesitation. You hear it in the quiet, in the wind through hollowed bones, in the weight of absence. Recognition is not comfort, it is responsibility. To see clearly is to accept the danger of knowing. And so you walk forward, carrying the truth they could not speak aloud. That the most perilous wars are those draped in righteousness, that grief untended becomes cruelty, that history whispers through bones because it wants you to remember. It waits for your answer, and you cannot ignore it.